arisen. There it is. Fantastic. Oh, all right. Thank you guys for being here. I am flying solo tonight here in the broadcast studio. I do not have the producer here with me. So if there are issues, it's his fault, not mine. First things first, if someone would down in the comments, please give me a comment. Let me know if sounds right, if everything is working well. Thank you guys for being here. This is the Godly Trading Podcast. We are here every Sunday evening at 5, and we have two different styles, two different episodes that we like. Sounds good. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. We have two different column ideas. So one of them is our Bible study for traders. And if you've seen that, you think, man, this guy really loves Greek and Hebrew. I do kind of go down a rabbit trail of I just love studying the individual words that go into it and how that applies to us as traders. The other one is what we've kind of kicked off here in the last month or so, is called Christian Trader Talk. And so I want to just talk to as many people out there who are doing this thing from a spiritual perspective. And with that in mind, we have Kathi, and Kathy's mic is muted. And did I do that? Hang on, unmute mic. Kathi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And I can hear you, which is even better. Fantastic.
Ooh, perfect.
Who needs a producer? So, by the way, for all of you out there, you say, well, how do you find these people? Well, sometimes people reach out to me, and sometimes I reach out to somebody and say, hey, what are you doing Sunday evening? And I usually get a response like, why? Because you're going to be on my podcast with it, which is what happened with Kathi. I believe the technical term is dragooned. I said, oh, thank you for volunteering to be on my podcast. Oh, you didn't do that? Oh, funny that. Now you have. So, Kathi, thank you for putting up with me asking you to be here.
My pleasure.
One of the things that I love about our community and any community is learning about how people arrived sort of at the same place from a different perspective, doing a kind of a different thing. So give us some background on you. I put in the description, you were in the healthcare field, and as you said, you were in charge of some hospitals there for a while. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you, I'm married and I have 3 adult kids and I have 6 grandkids, which I call my little darlings. So, you know, when my kids say, hey, you love them more than you loved us, I go, well, of course I do. They're my little darling.
How that works.
Yeah. So I live in Wichita, Kansas. My career started in healthcare. My undergraduate degree is in medical laboratory science. That's laboratory medicine. Nobody knows what that is. So I'll just tell you that when you have your blood drawn and they say, take it to the lab, that's us. That's the lab.
Oh, you are the lab. Okay.
The lab, right. So we're the ones running all the tests and collecting all the data and coming to some conclusions about how great your health is or what you might have. So that's what the lab is. So I moved up into management pretty early in my career. And so I moved into management and spent most of my career as a healthcare executive, which did include being the chairman of the board for 2 hospitals. I oversaw those hospitals from the ground up, from like the holding company that I worked for decided to build 2 new hospitals. And they said, hey, Kathi, which it wasn't even my job. Operations wasn't my job at the time, but they said, hey, Kathi, we want you to be over these hospitals. And I really think it was because of everyone on the corporate team. I was the only one that had ever worked at a hospital before. That's kind of how that happened. But so we built them from the ground up. You have to go through all the regulations, accreditation, get patients. COVID hit shortly after we opened. So yeah, it was interesting work. I love healthcare. I believe in healthcare, but it is very, very stressful. So about 3 years ago, I retired from that to spend more time trading. So that catches you up on me.
Well, how did you, in the midst of what seems like a pretty grueling career, how did you hear about trading from the get-go? What brought you into it in the first place?
Well, so my dad was an investor, which he's still an investor. Today is his birthday. He's 91. So happy birthday, Dad, if you happen to watch this. He still is an active investor. So from an early age, like I'm going to say 10, 11 years old, I was always really interested in the stock markets. Now, I think that once you learn how your mind works, I look back and I go, well, that makes sense, because it was connecting dots. It was gathering data that appealed to me even at a young age. So I watched my dad invest. And then after Robert and I got married and we had jobs with 401ks, I was not a set it and forget it person. So I was in there every month. I checked to make sure every deposit went in when it was supposed to. I looked at all of the statements every month. I was on my phone checking it. I studied the mutual funds, came to the conclusion over the long haul that I don't like mutual funds, but that's a different story. I would switch them out if I didn't think that they were performing like I thought they should. I would switch them out. I even had, when you have a 401k, they have these financial advisors that are willing to come and talk to you, and they would come and talk to me about, look, this is not how 401k works. You set it and forget it. I would say, I don't set it and forget it. That's my money. I don't set it and forget it. So that led into my interest in trading. Like, I want to buy stocks. I want to choose this stuff myself. So we also had IRAs, which I was able to trade from IRAs. And so I would just do a little bit and, buy something. And then I studied all the time. I joined education platforms. I read, I practiced on really small amounts of money. And that went on for years. It just went on for years and years until I just got better and better at it. And even when I was working those really, really long hours, I could, like on the weekend, I would study the charts, decide what I was going to buy, figure out when I was going to buy it, or maybe what I was going to sell. So even with the really long hours, I was able to trade on a small scale, which I am actually very grateful for, because I did that for years and I learned a lot. I've just always said there's no shortcut to experience. And, I made really dumb mistakes early on, but it was with really small amounts of money. And then it was like, once you saw it, you went, oh, I'll never do that again. So that's kind of what brought me to more active trading now. So,
we had somebody over Instagram said, did you retire to trade or retired and started trading? So and I'm gonna add to that. This was their name was DONYC. Let me ask you this: when you retired to spend more time trading, did your trading at all change now that you had more time to do it? Was there any aspect of, whether it's a new market or a new this or a new that, because you now had more time to do it, what effect did that have on your trading?
Yes, I retired to trade. Now, let me say, I'm not I probably am a full-time trader, but because of the way I trade, it doesn't require 40 hours a week. I'm a big believer in multiple revenue streams, especially if you want to trade. And so my husband had some businesses. So when I retired, I retired to trade, but I also helped my husband in one of his businesses. He has two businesses. We have multiple revenue streams. I highly recommend it, because I don't want the weight of our groceries on my shoulder. So,
and for those of you out there who have the idea that, I want to trade for a living, by the way, fantastic book by, if anyone's interested, Dr. Alexander Eldred, the Russian psychiatrist, Trading for a Living. But it comes down to the question of, what does that mean to you, trading for a living? I mean, Kathi, you're obviously, some people might say, oh, well, she doesn't have a job. She trades, therefore she's trading for a living. But you would say, yeah, but I'm also doing this for a living and that for a living. I'm managing multiple streams of income, which is not a title that rolls off the tongue, but it is more or less true of what you're doing.
Yeah. And
you're not relying on trading to buy groceries.
Right. And I would
necessarily.
say, and maybe if we get to the spiritual side of this, I can talk more about this, but I take my trading very seriously because of a verse from the Bible. I take it very seriously. When I set the goals for what I want to do for the year, I take that seriously. I work hard at it. I think you have to work hard. It's just that we have multiple revenue streams. And so if I mess up a little bit, we're not dependent upon my trading other than I am trading with our retirement accounts. So I take that very seriously. I'm not trading 100% of our retirement accounts, but I am trading with a large portion of our retirement accounts. So I believe God called me to do it, and I am to work hard at it and do it well. So there's that balance there. I'm not trading for what the heck I think I'll trade this week. That sounds fun. It's not that at all. I treat it like a business. I treat it like one of our revenue streams.
You know, if you are trading your retirement account, one can make the argument that you're trading for a living for 10 years from now. You're the living that you need when time comes. Speaking of spiritual element, there is a verse which I think is in Proverbs, and all I remember is it's something or other 7, something or other 8. You know, and the premise of it is to spreading your risk around. But talk about the for lack of a better term, the calling aspect to trading from God. And if you felt that there was a time, or if it was a general overtime, I think God really wants me to do this, or was it like bolt of lightning? How did those two things come together such that you could definitively say, okay, this is what I think God wants me to do?
Yeah, so it came over time. So I would say that I do believe it's a calling. I do believe that it's part of what God has given me to support the mission of our family. So I would go back to Genesis and Adam and Eve. And I'm not going to do Hebrew because I can't do it as well as Pepper can. But in the verse where it says that Eve was to be the helper or the helpmate of Adam, that verse, that word in Hebrew, it does not mean Adam's little helper. Like Adam's got the big job and then you get the little helper. It doesn't mean anything like that. It means warrior. It means mighty. It means strong. So we're not called to be the little helpers of our husbands. We're called to be strong and to work hard and to give our skills and our abilities to the mission that our husband has established. Now, that mission can be anything. That is between a husband and a wife. How her skills and abilities are used in that mission, it doesn't even matter whether it's monetized or not. We're all called to work. So we all know that work came before the fall. Work is how God put us on this earth, and we develop these skills and abilities. So that's where it started, was I knew that any skills or abilities that I had I was to be on mission with my husband. So then you start saying, well, what are your skills and abilities? And I'm very analytical. I'm scientific. I'm data driven. I love that stuff. So you can start to see how looking at charts is fun to me. Some people would go, oh, shoot me now. But
exactly.
It's fun to me. I'm data driven. So over the years, as I would be interested in trading and investing, my husband was very supportive. He's like, Kathi, you're good at this. Do it. Go do whatever you want to do with it. So it evolved over the years, but it started by knowing my skills and abilities. And then when I realized that, so there was a period of time that I would never tell anybody else that I traded. I would never tell.
And why was that?
Well, there's so many people that think it's gambling. There's so many people that think it's like maybe being foolish with your money. Mm-hmm. And there is risk, just like starting businesses, there's risk. But I began to change that as I understood, like this is how God made my mind. So I don't need a lot of data analysis for a lot of the things that I do, but this, man, I really can shine at this. And so I started getting more bold about this is what I do. And actually there's a verse that meant a lot to me. So Proverbs 31:18 I think it's the NIV. It says, she sees that her trading is profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Now that verse meant a lot to me. And I understand that that was not talking about the stock market. So
But trading is trading.
Don't worry about my theology. But yes, so when we trade our time, our energy, our resources for something else that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the Proverbs 31 woman for her family. And it says that she sees that it's profitable. So we have a duty to see that what we're trading our time and energy and money for is profitable. And that's really my guiding. I have a duty to be profitable. It all belongs to God.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, on this earth, my husband and I have worked hard for it. It belongs to my family. I have a duty to be profitable. So that drives me every day. I'm not profitable every day. So I need a bigger time frame for being profitable, but that drives me every day.
You know, by the way, speaking of Hebrew, the word there that when God says that one of my favorite verses in the Bible, Adam is naming the animals, and it said there was not found for him a suitable helper. And I heard someone once say that as God, he's naming the animals, God looks down and goes, you know what? That poor old boy ain't gonna make it on his own. We need to give him somebody. By the way, the word helper there, the Hebrew is ezer, which just means help. But interestingly enough, when Samuel lifts, I love this, when Samuel sets up the stone and calls it, well, we all sing Ebenezer, but it's not Ebenezer. But anyway, we're Americans. It means stone of help. So the same help that God is naming woman is the same help that the Israelites call out to God for. So
exactly.
it is so at times supernatural. By the way, for those of you who are wondering about the benefits of trading from a woman's perspective, and we can dive into that real quick. There are statistics, there are data. Speaking of data driven, women are actually better traders than men, generically speaking. And I was actually talking to my wife about this recently, and Kathi, you and I talked about this. That
Mm-hmm.
one of the Achilles heel of traders, and men specifically, is not wanting to be wrong, which is a subset of pride. And for all of the idea that women are more emotional than men, just as creatures, when it comes to trading, that emotion doesn't exist among women. You are not prone to that emotion of I'm going to hang on to my loser so I'm not wounding my pride, which in some ways is the best superpower you can have as a trader. But not to go down that rabbit trail too far, have you had any experience in your trading? I recognize that most trading is done from one's living room, where you thought, well, okay, I've suddenly realized I'm a woman trading, and trading is generally a man's world. Has that ever cropped up where you thought, oh, I'm a woman trader? Or maybe you're like, you know what, I'm in my kitchen, so trading, that doesn't apply.
Yeah, absolutely. Even sometimes to where maybe early on, not so much now anymore, but early on to where I would think, God didn't give me the right brain because, maybe I would, and I have wonderful Christian friends and wonderful fellowship. And I had the opportunity to homeschool my kids. And, there would be women talking about bread and grinding wheat. And I'm over there thinking, I wonder what the market's doing right now. So
wheat. What's the pros and cons of wheat today?
So yes, there were times when I think I wasn't made to be a very good woman, but I grew out of that. I matured in the Lord. I have a strong conviction that a lot of times as women, we don't push ourselves as hard as we could. And we don't, especially maybe if we don't have to work, we just don't push ourselves as hard as we can. We don't work as hard. We don't accomplish as much. And I don't think that was God's intent. So as I've grown in my faith and in my trading, I think trading is an incredible blessing for a woman. And here's why, because I'm also the women's director at my church. I can go have coffee with ladies and I'm still making money.
True.
I'm not trading an hour for an hour like we do at a job. At a job, if you want to make more money, you got to work more hours or get a promotion, which means you're going to work more hours. So I think trading is this incredible blessing that if women have the mind for it and the interest, then they should try it. They should give it a try, because it's a wonderful way to support your family.
Yeah.
I don't mean financially, I mean in mission.
Right.
And use skills that you might wonder, well, why did God give me this analytical, data-driven mind?
I have run into so many women recently who have somewhat of the same story. And I don't know why it would be, other than inertia, that the trading is seen as a man's world, because men can be just as oblivious to the desire to trade. I mean, I think you had mentioned it before that your husband is like, you're doing great, I want no part of it, kind of when it comes to learning trading.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. That's not his skill set. He owns 2 businesses and he's looking at a third one. That's how he does his thing. So, I mean, really, truthfully, if he were in charge of the retirement, he would have said it and forget it, and we would have been just fine. But that's the trading, watching it every day. No, that is not his thing.
You talk about your women's group. One of the reasons that I started a business around this idea was that trading is an amazing opportunity that, for whatever reason, a lot of people don't understand, appreciate. I mean, generally speaking, when I mention to people in real life about trading, their first response is, "You mean like the NFL draft picks that would just happen?" And no, that's not. No. But in a Christian community, generally speaking, if I'm having a conversation with people, it's not going to take more than 5 or 10 minutes before someone mentions gambling or Jesus flipping over money tables. Or have you had any pushback on the idea of you being a Christian and you trying to make money?
Not trying to make money, but trying to make money by trading.
Right, specifically in the financial market.
Yeah. So I think that's a question that we all have to be prepared to answer. And maybe some people, if they come into it with that, they would need to wrestle that out a little bit with God. So I will say that my dad hates trading. He says you should be an investor. Now, here's the thing. I got an MBA in finance, and I did most of the work in investing. And one of the things that I figured out really, really quick is that, first of all, trading is just a different timeline than investing. Right. The market is going up and down the same way. You're just following either a longer timeline or a shorter timeline, but the market is doing what the market does. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, as a Christian, you can turn anything into gambling.
That is so true.
You can turn anything into gambling. So gambling is more of now I need to say this right. Gambling is more a condition of the heart. Mm-hmm. And although I recognize that there are casinos and there are ways to gamble that really, really harm people. But gambling is trying to get something for nothing. And that's not trading, or it's not how you do trading. Trading is hard work. God honors all hard work. So, and we've talked about, are there things we won't trade? Are there companies we won't invest in? The answer is yes. But so I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'm not gambling. I have risk management rules in place. I have a trading plan that I really believe the Lord has led me to over the years. and I follow it in the same way that let's say I worked for a company and they said, okay, Kathi, you're a trader. Here's the trading plan. I would not deviate from that because I have a boss to report to. So my boss might come and say, why did you do that? What was your gut feeling more important than this trading plan? Why would you do that? Well, likewise, these resources belong to my family and to God. And so I don't gamble with what we have. I would say that this kind of goes along with the difference between men and women. I think that as a woman, I'm probably more nurturing towards my my trading. So I'm not worried about being right. I'm worried about making money or losing money that belongs to my family. So that's more my focus.
I think that, and by the way, over on Instagram, Cameron Michael says trading is only gambling when you don't follow rules and manage risk, and trading with God keeps the flesh accountable with greed.
Absolutely.
As far as the gambling is concerned, anytime you put money at risk thoughtlessly, you're gambling. One could argue that dropping $250,000 for a college degree in whatever studies is gambling, that you're going to be able to make that money back. And we're going to, by the way, next week's Bible study for traders is going to tackle the very thorny issue of Christians and wealth and our approach to that. Did you ever deal personally in your trading and spiritual journey as they go side by side? Did you ever wrestle with that aspect of trading and second guess or worry? Is it gambling? Am I doing this? Did you ever have the doubts on the front end? The common doubts that we hear because the criticism of trading when you first got started, and obviously now you don't.
I think because I took so many investing classes, I think that was a real changing point for me. And I understood the markets better than if I would have done it on my own. So, I mean, they covered the whole gamut. They covered long-term investing, all the different instruments you could invest in, trading. And then you start to see it's just a different style of investing. It's a different time frame, different goal, definitely. But I would also say that, like, even in your example with the college degree, there's a difference between risk and gambling. We all have to take risks in our life. God calls us to take risks. So, when I decided to major in laboratory medicine, was I taking a risk that I could get a job? Of course. But I knew that part of what was going to determine it was how well I did, how hard I worked, how successful I was on the boards, things like that. So there was an element of that I was controlling that risk. Mm-hmm. That is exactly like trading. If you work hard, you learn what you need to learn, then you are doing your part to control the risk, and the rest of it belongs to the Lord. Now, I will say that if you spend too much time on YouTube looking at traders, you are going to see bright, shining gambling, because the stuff about standing in front of a Ferrari and I made $1 million in 3 months, that's ridiculous. It's either lying or gambling. It's just so. I think that a lot of that stuff we as Christians need to ignore and not listen to, and definitely not think that we're not good traders because we don't have YouTubes up about how successful we are.
One of the unfortunate questions that people out in the world ask as soon as you say I've been trading is, how much money have you made? And that is a terrible metric by which to judge yourself and your success. By the way, the risk management aspect of it is also biblical. The story from Matthew and from Matthew and Luke. Matthew is the nobleman leaves 3 servants. Each one gets 5, one gets 2, one gets 1 talent, which is a whole lot of money. The other one, he leaves 10 of them, 1 mina, which is not as much money. Anyway, long story short, in each story, one of those buries it in the ground. He assumes no risk whatsoever. He is afraid of taking any risk. And he was called wicked in both cases and had it taken from him. So there's a biblical concept of risk management. One of the things I love about options is when you're doing an option, you do the math and you know from the very get-go, you define the risk on the front end. Anyway, risk management is the most critical element of trading. And I think it is absolutely a biblical concept. That
absolutely.
That is we see over and over again. By the way, for anybody out there watching who may be struggling with trading and risk management, there is a pervasive idea that all traders go through, and we can touch on how you landed on what you trade now in a minute. That when you first get started, this didn't work for whatever period of time that you allowed it to work, a week, a month, a day. So you jump to this, and you're constantly in search of the best strategy, the right strategy. Like everybody out there, after this podcast is over with, go to YouTube and go clickety, search for the Flat Earth Trading Society. Not Flat Earth Trading Society. There's a guy out there named Rob something, Reinhold, I believe his name. He owned the prop firm. He put his money where his mouth is and wanted to prove the point that risk management is all that matters. So he put $100,000 of his money in an account, had his minions trade it for him. They picked stocks at random, not just at random, hilariously at random, throwing Scrabble tiles on the floor that spell a company. Let's invest in that. Put a moving average on it. Is it up? We're going long. Is it down? We're going short. And then everything else was risk management and trade management. They made 15% in a year off 100 trades, off of randomness. Which is the point that risk management is key, which is why risk management is one of the key elements. When we're teaching that where you put your stop determines how much money you're going to make. Anyway, I don't want to slip into teaching mode. But so you have come at this from a slightly more cerebral point of view than most people do. You had some formal training. Well, I say some. You had an MBA. You had formal training in this. So when time came to, I was going to say make the switch, but it sounds like your journey from investing to trading was more of a slow, for lack of a better term, evolution than I'm going to be a trader today kind of a situation.
Oh,
so how did you wind your way from set it and forget it? By the way, she says she doesn't like set it and forget it. And though she monitored it, this lady was in a trade of Rolls Royce from April 15th to the end of September. Never have I seen such risk management, such discipline. That thing, I measured it on TradingView. It's like 155%.
Yeah.
It's like Hall of Fame level trade.
Oh, well. So that was an unusual one, and there was risk with that one because I could not set a stop loss. So
that's right, because it was an OTC, wasn't it?
Yes, and you can't set a stop loss, or I don't know, maybe it's my platform you can't. But I always have a trailing stop loss, so I would watch that thing, and I had that from April until I don't know, maybe September. I can't remember now. And it went up phenomenal. But I mean, those are like 1 out of 20, and I just held on, and there would be days that I would think I would just watch all the indicators every day to figure out, do I need to be exiting right now? And I think I did exit when it started going sideways, but even then, so that did require me to watch a lot closer that I had that. And I even prayed at times like, Lord, should I have even been in this? Because I don't have a stop loss. And that's one of my trading rules is a stop loss. But I think you also have to listen to the Lord and you learn new things, and I learned some things to not be afraid of. So yeah, but that's like a one-off.
You're at your job, you're at your 401k, you've been investing. By the way, again, most people's idea of investing would qualify as gambling because there's no when you have money in your pension and then some guy named Kyle is investing for BlackRock, there's no stop loss when you're investing in Nvidia. There's none of the risk management apply anyway. So you're making the transition and you're working your way over towards trading. How How did you start that process of saying, okay, I need a plan in place, more than just researching a company? Okay, it's a good company, I'm gonna hold these for the next 10 years. How did you start that process? And it sounds like you said that God led you to it. A, the nuts and bolts, not to go into too much detail of how you got there, and B, how you included prayer in that process.
Well, so I did evolve. For one thing, I joined a company that had education. So you could learn all of it. You could learn options, you could learn Forex, all of it. So when I was in my MBA and I was learning about Forex and I was learning about money markets and foreign money markets, I thought it was the coolest thing. And I really did believe that when I started trading more and had the opportunity to do that, that I would trade Forex. When the time came that I was in this education program, and I looked at Forex, it just didn't click with me. It wasn't as exciting as I remembered it. And that's a big, to me, that's just a big red flag. If you don't enjoy what you're learning and you don't get excited about it, I think God wants us to enjoy it and be excited about it. So that was the first thing that happened. The next thing that happened, so I was like, no Forex. And I still was trading stocks and love stocks and love trying to find the right ones and stuff. But here's something else that happened that was funny. There was an options conference in California, and my husband, who's not particularly interested in anything trading, he said, yeah, we can go to that conference and then I'll go with you and then we'll have a vacation in California. So we go, and the conference is for 3 days, and I'm just bored out of my mind. And he's eating it up. He's like, this is the coolest stuff. So then when we came home, he kind of dabbled with options a little bit, but it wasn't enough to hold his attention, like to make it something. But he enjoyed it and he learned it and he was good at it. And so I said, okay, there's one of my signs from God. I want to do this full time. And I was bored to death with that. And here's this guy that's not even interested. And he goes and hears it and he goes, oh, that's kind of cool. And he plays around with it. So I didn't have near the enthusiasm that he did. That's a sign from God. This is not for you. So I ended up back at stocks. I just always went, do what you love. Like, don't try to force yourself into something else. Do what you love. And stocks is what I love. Now, I've changed over the years as I've grown the kind of stocks that I'll invest in. But I've been stocks for most of my trading career.
That is such a way too often overlooked element of trading, is to make sure that what you're doing fits you. And fit is it's a subjective term. By the way, plug, if you go to godlytrading.com and click the blue button, you can learn about our trading program, where we teach you how to build a system that fits you and your personality and your lifestyle. But personality is part of it. I'm a trend trader, and I have a system that works fantastically, but it's counter trend, and it makes me money, and I hate it with a passion because it goes long when I want to go short, and vice versa. So yeah, and I have tried, bless his heart, my brother from another mother, Pierre, has been trying to get me to trade futures now for 5 years. And I just, no, I'm not doing it. But I have no interest in that. And at the end of the day, the thing that you're going to be most successful at, I believe, is the one that you enjoy the most. So you have tried to veer off of stocks, and you keep coming back to it. At some point, did you give yourself almost permission to say, you know what, fine, I'm just going to do stocks, and I'm not going to try to force myself down these other roads?
If it was a road that I'm not interested in. Now, I do have a little bit of interest in futures, but this is where you have to do some data analysis. Like, how long would it take me? How much time would I need to invest to learn it? I would probably just set aside a little bit of money. And I think that I could, because of the way I trade. So I'm a swing trader. I used to swing trade on a short timeline, like 3 to 5 days. I'll let a trade go as long as is going to make money.
5 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, I think my average is 25 days or something like that. So I get out fast. If it's not doing what I thought it was going to do, I get out. And then the ones that I want to let them run, let your winners run. So I let them run. So I do think that I could probably devote a little bit of time to learning a little more about futures. So I might do that. But I will never give up stocks. I love stocks.
When you were making that decision to leave corporate world, if we can call healthcare corporate world, when you leave the boardroom, you did it intentionally for several reasons, one of which was trading. What was that decision like that says, because in some ways it was a step of faith, I would imagine. Say, now maybe there was an emotional relief sign ahead that said, I can't wait till I'm done with these people. But what was that like? I can only imagine that A, required a step of faith. By the way, best example of that, Indiana Jones #3, when he's at the chasm, he sticks his foot out, and it's a step of faith. Oh my goodness, I can't stand that. Anyway, what was the decision like, and was it was the reality anywhere near what you were worried about it would be?
Well, yes, it was hard. And I gave my boss 6 months notice. So there were times when I would be sitting at my desk and I would think, what have I done? I wonder if I could go back and tell him I changed my mind. But I really didn't. I knew it was the right thing because, first of all, I had my husband's support. And also because my husband has 2 businesses and he's looking at a 3rd business now. And so there was other work for me to do, and it wasn't 60 hours a week. And he said, take as much time. You can be a full-time trader if you want to. So I help him out a little bit. I trade a lot. I take care of the women at the church. I have friends. I mean, it's just been, it's a quite a change over how my career was, because my career was very demanding. And so I wanted my family to be first. And so I did kind of 2 things. I worked and was very successful at that. And then everything else went into my family, taking care of my family. So it's very relaxing. Another thing that I used to think about was, well, if I quit this job, I'm old. I mean, I can't just say, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll go get another job. I'm not in that season of life to where I could just go get another job. So that was something that I thought about. So it was a step of faith, but yet at the whole time, there was just peace that we just knew that it was the right time and it was the right thing.
What's been the spiritual journey? Let me rephrase that question to be proper English. What's the spiritual journey been like through trading? As I'm sure you came to a point like I did, and you realized that, hey, you know what? This trading thing is really more spiritual than anything else. What's that progression been like from the beginning of investing? It's a thing. I don't need to really, involve God in it because it just plump money in Tesla and forget about it. But to now where it's daily interaction with him and the markets.
Yeah. That's been, I would say, the major difference as far as my trading. So because I was working and I was doing everything and doing my trading, and it was all like my skills and my abilities. And even though my whole life is centered around the Lord, but specifically around trading, I never really thought like, well, I need to pray about this trade. I just thought I needed to use my mind, my God-given mind, because I mean, life is about stewardship and it all belongs to him. But I didn't specifically pray about everything like that. So the first year, so I just finished, this is my 3rd year. On October 31st was my 3rd year home. The first year, I did terrible in the market. And what I call terrible is...
So define that.
Yeah. What I call terrible is that I did not beat the S&P.
Right. Okay.
And in my opinion, why am I doing all this work? if I can't even beat the S&P, because I can just stick it in a mutual fund and hit the S&P. So I had this moment of this is not, God's not blessing this. So that's what I
Did that come with a side order of doubt?
Yeah. And that's what I wrestled with the first year. I mean, but then I went back to you have a lot to learn, and there's a learning curve, and there's no shortcut for experience, even though I've been doing this a long time, but I hadn't been doing it with as much money and as much time. So then the second year I did better, but it wasn't amazing. And I wanted it to be amazing. But the thing about it was it forced me to turn to God every day. Like, what is your plan for me today? And what is the plan for this money today? Because I knew I was called to it. I just wasn't good enough at it yet. So I had things to learn. So now I'm having a very good year this year. So I think there's something about 3 years, but my third year's been really good, and it's beating the market. So that gives me the confidence that I'm not wasting my time if I'm beating the market. So it's been a good year. And I think that's exactly part of what God was doing with me, was turn this over to me, and we're going to do it together, not just with your brain, but also with his power and his spirit.
You know, Paula here says that that's the way I also, and I can only imagine that making this momentous decision, because like you said, you were almost at a stage of life where this was the last, you know, there was no going back from this. And then to have a not good year, probably, I would imagine, brought you closer to him as you questioned and what's going on. And I thought I could do this. And I did last year when I had my job, I was better than I am now. And all that. Did the struggle in trading bring you closer to God, which brought you back to be a better trader in the end?
Yes. And also my husband had more faith in me than I did. So
that's good. I can imagine that support from the family is a critical element, or could have been a critical negative element potentially.
Right. He continually said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Keep doing it. So, I mean, that was huge, because, you know, I kept thinking there's going to come a day that he's going to say, you need to go back to work. But that never happened. So there's so many times that he has more confidence in me than I have in myself. So that was a big deal.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That could have been really hard on a relationship, but we've been married a long time. So,
well, that to be honest is, I think that especially in a God-centered marriage, the other partner is in some way, the other life partner, spouse, is in some ways also your trading partner in the support element, because they're the ones. I mean, if you've read the book, you know that I wasn't, you know, people, my family knew how my trading day went when I walked in the door just by looking at my face, and the family's already there experiencing what you're going through. So they can be the supportive element, the other half that you need to buck you up. And you probably had days where you were down on yourself and your husband picked you up and gave you the encouragement to keep going.
Yeah. He would just say, you're doing what God called you to do. Go do it. So there wasn't a lot of babying or like, you know, that, and the day-to-day things that happen are not an indication of the calling on our life. That there is nowhere in scripture that once a person got called, then it was easy thereafter.
Right.
There's nowhere in scripture.
There are so many examples of the exact opposite.
Exactly.
David was anointed by Samuel and spent the next 3 years running for his life. Like immediately.
So there is a fight to faith. And I think that's kind of what I was going through. I see it more now this year. It was the fight of faith. Okay, I called you to trade. do you believe that even when the market's down and even when I'm down and the market's not down? Because if I'm below market, I'm doing worse than the market. I can't blame it on the market. So that I think that's what it was really the fight of faith for me to get through to, yes, this is what we're doing, God. This is what you called me to.
Yeah, there and Polly puts it right. Spousal support is so important because, especially for husbands and wives, you are a unit. You have to have from the same window. You have to be in you have to be together in this decision. You can't just say, okay, honey, I'm gonna quit my job and trade, and the other one sort of begrudgingly allows it. Trading's hard enough without stirring discord in a marriage. And you mentioned day to day. We've talked about this a lot in our community group. That as a trader, depending on your style, whether you're a scalper or a swing trader or a position trader, you really shouldn't live and die by every trade. You should evaluate yourself success-wise in slightly larger blocks of time. So speaking of time, what does an average day in the life of Kathi, a trading day in the life of Kathi, look like?
So at 7:30, I get on to see. So I'm in the Central Time Zone. The market opens at 8:30. At 7:30, I get on to see where we're headed. What's the day going to look like? And I've also looked at it the night before. So that's what I do first. And then I come back to it. I try to get on at 8:30 and I try to spend 90 minutes on it. And I have very specific things I do during that 90 minutes. Now, where this doesn't always work is that in my husband's business, I have clients to see. I try not to schedule them in the morning, but sometimes I have to go see clients. But no matter what, when I come back to my home office to start trading, I'm going to set aside 90 minutes to do what I either did at 8:30 or I'll for sure try to do before the market closes. Then after the market closes, I try to do another 90 minutes of getting ready for the next day or just watching. So I put trailing stop losses on everything and I check those to see if I like where they are. That's really my exit, is when I get stopped out. Unless I use some momentum indicators. If I see that all the indicators are showing that momentum's gone, I'll start, or it's starting to go, I'll just go ahead and get out. So that's the kind of stuff I look at after the market closes. On the weekends, so I also run screens to find the stocks that I want. And I have a very specific kind of stock I'm looking for. And so I'll run those screens, especially on the weekend. So when I go into Monday, I have a list. Now, sometimes I'm fully invested and I can't buy anything, but I'll have a list of what I'm looking at so that if I get out of one, I've got an idea. I'll watch those to see if they're continuing to be a stock that I would want to buy. So that's what I do.
It sounds like, yeah, but it sounds like most people would kill for that kind of work-life balance. I mean, you're trading, let's just round up and call it trading for a living for what sounds like about 3 hours a day throughout the course of the day. Now, you did mention one thing. I want everyone to hear what she says, that no matter what she does, she sits down and she tries to, we've even talked about, wall off that period of time to be consistent. And so at 7:30, you're doing this, and at 8:30, you're going to do this. But if all else fails, at 9 o'clock or whatever the time was you said, you're sitting down for 90 minutes and you're doing your thing, dadgummit.
Yes.
And don't talk to me otherwise. I mean, the world can just stop for a little bit.
Yes. So that's I call it focus time, and it's I focus on it. And we've even gotten off, if anybody knows about it, the state of flow, where your mind goes completely focused, and there's ways to get yourself into flow. And that is my 90 minutes of focused flow time. Because I need God to show me things. I need to connect dots that maybe I haven't connected before, or see things to where I go, oh, now that I'm looking at this, I don't know whether this indicator is doing as well as it used to. Things like that.
You mentioned the flow state, by the way, because you have degrees in that behavioral, mental brain stuff.
Health. Yeah.
Health. Is there a metric? Is there a number that says that, in order to enter flow state, you need at least X number of minutes or hours or whatever, and then if it gets broken, you need X number of minutes to get back into it? Is there like a general rule of thumb when it comes to how long does it take to get into flow state?
Well, there might be. I don't know them if there are. I use 90 minutes because in my work, we did a lot of work with flow. 90 minutes seems to be about the average that people can stay focused and really. So after a certain amount of time, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll just check my email while I'm, that kind of thing. That's the sign that flow is over when you start getting distracted. Now, getting into flow, the first stage is the struggle, and you have to fight to get focused. And everybody knows what this is. Like you say, I'm going to sit down and focus on this. Even I do it in my quiet time. I'm going to read these chapters. Okay. All of a sudden,
the first thing that happens is every thought in the world.
I meant to start the dishwasher. It just attacks you. Well, that's
universal. It's not just me.
Yeah. It's the first phase is struggle. And the more you practice and the more you can do it, the shorter you can make the struggle.
You said practice. What does that mean? How does one practice this trying to enter flow state intentionally?
Well, by sitting down and saying, I'm going to sit here for 90 minutes. If I'm in struggle for 90 minutes, I'm still going to sit here for 90 minutes. Now, I've never struggled for 90 minutes, but I mean, you can train yourself to pretty fast, like within 5 minutes. I turn off my phone. I shut down. I close my windows so that I'm not seeing emails popping in. I do all the things I need to do, and then I focus. This is my focus time. And the more you do that, like if you've told yourself you're going to sit there, it's kind of like, if you tell your kids, you're going to sit there and read that book and you're not getting up till you've read that book. They're going to learn to read the book really fast.
Yes.
So you can train yourself. And also because I love what I do. So I want to get into the focus time. I just have to, forget about the dishwasher and all those kind of things.
Is there and you may not be able to answer this, but have you found any sort of correlation between when you couldn't get out of struggle and its effect on your trading, and when you're in flow and its effect on your trading?
Yes, because you're so concentrated, you're so focused. And also, so I won't go into all the biology of it, but part of that state of flow is that your brain can connect dots that you've never connected before. And the reason is because your brain takes in more sensory stuff than you can process, but it's still there. So if you can narrow your focus, then you can start to see things that you never noticed before. It's very fun. So yes, I can see a big difference. You get great ideas when you're in flow. Another thing people can do if they want to have a flow session, just start writing. Just say, I'm going to sit here for 90 minutes might be hard, but say 45 minutes. I'm just going to write every random thought that comes to my head. And you start writing and you don't judge them. You don't go, oh, that's stupid or anything. You don't judge it. You just write and write and write. You go back and read that later, especially people that do it on a regular basis. There are companies that have been born out of that. There are innovations that have come about. You go back and look and go, wow, that's a pretty good idea right there. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of flow. I think it's one of the states that God gave us in our amazing brain.
You can always tell when you're in it, but now that you've talked about struggle, it is so it's always there. I know that for me, when I drive around in my truck, I make I set the intent. Hey, I'm going to listen to this podcast, or I'm going to listen to this audiobook, and 30 seconds in, I am writing my next newsletter in my head, and while the thing is droning on in the background, I'm like, okay, so I guess this is just some way to spark that idea. But anyway, and I have yet to finish the book. What you mentioned, you have grown kids, and part of what I try to do is not only speak to the world, to me 30 years ago, but to my son's generation. The producer is 24. He's not here. He should be. By the way, if your name is Daniel Kelly, I sincerely apologize for banning you. I clicked the wrong button on your comment. That's not my fault. It's the producer's fault for not being here. And Nick, the IT department is 22. When you think about Proverbs 13:22, a good man or woman leaves an inheritance to their children's children. What do you see from trading that you want to pass on to your next generation? Is it direct? Hey, I'm trying to leave them inheritance, and Proverbs also goes on to say that the inheritance is that houses and riches are from the father, but a good woman is from the Lord. Or are you trying to pass on these skills of trading to the next generation? So the teach a man to fish method instead of giving them a fish. What does Kathi's trading plan have in store for the next generation, if anything?
Well, so of my 3 kids, one of them is interested in trading right now. He's the oldest. So he's interested in trading. The other 2 are more, they lean more towards my husband's side of developing businesses. And so I think the main thing that we want them to learn is it all belongs to God. You belong to God. We are stewards of what God's given us, and be faithful. I think that's what the main thing. And then, and whatever skills they want to learn, we bring them along, and we're happy to bring them along.
Sorry about that. Click the wrong button. It's interesting. I keep going back to I'm so excited about trading, and I want to teach everybody trading, but there are people who just don't want to. And like my wife, I think that she would be, because of the way her brain works, she's much like you, even though she won't admit it. She's much like you in being data driven. She would thrive in this, but she has absolutely no desire, which leads me to the roundabout way that says this: in order for trading to be successful, I really truly believe that trading has to be a calling from God for it to be maybe not successful, right? There are people out there clearly who are not Christians who are making money at this. That's not a negative comment. I mean, I'm not going down that road. But anyway, there are people out there of other faiths who are being successful at this. But for this to be long term, do you think that it has to be that calling from God to give you that purpose? Otherwise, it's just some random thing you're doing with your 401k? That was a long intro to that question. Did I lose you? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you were cutting in and out a little bit. So
that's my fault. Starlink and trees is the problem. So the question is, do you think that in order to be successful, trading really does need to be a calling from God? Uh-oh. It's probably me again, which might be a sign.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I can't.
That's all right.
Know what you said.
Talking about trading being a calling from God. Do you think that in order to be successful at this, it really does need to be a calling? You can't just pick it up willy-nilly. Okay. Well, it appears that we have, speaking of flow state, it appears that Starlink has decided that this is. Oh, go ahead. Fantastic. She heard me.
I think that anything we do, we need to believe that that's what God has for us, because our lives are not, like, our spiritual lives are not separated from our physical lives. That would be Gnosticism. We're spiritual beings in physical world. So we need to believe that everything is part of what God calls us to. So yeah, I think you do need to feel a calling to be doing what you're doing.
And that would be the first time that Gnosticism has made an appearance on the Godly Trading Podcast, but probably not the last. Well, I'm going to take, speaking of flow state, I'm going to take Starlink's inability to maintain a connection right now as a sign to bring this in for a landing. So you have a particular soft spot in your heart for helping women. So if you could just give a nugget of truth to the women who are watching about why they should start trading, what would it be? Okay. How much of that did you hear? Any of it? Am I still here? Guys, I do apologize for this.
To helping women.
Yes.
I think I would say try it. Try it. Did you hear me?
I did, yes. I'm clearly it's time to wrap this up. I don't know why, but my internet connection here at the house has just decided it's done. So, Kathi, thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to not. Thank you for not saying no. In all honesty, thank you for not just saying, "Nah, I'm not doing that." I appreciate that. That's more than you know. Thank you all guys for being here. We'll be back on next Sunday night, and we'll be back with the topic of Christians and creating wealth. And what does the Bible have to say about wealth? Polly says, try it and see if you feel God leading. Honestly, that's the best advice for anything that we feel called to. So with that, guys, thank you all for being here, and I'll see you next time.
Yes, that's true.